Day number 1 as a supervisor, avoiding common tripping hazards. My coworker, Beth Lanier, from her nearly 30 years in human resources across heavy industry, community government, and public accounting, will explore the most common things I wish I had known when I was first promoted as supervisor. Welcome back to Brain Chatter, where we listen past the daily noise and explore topics at the intersection of leadership, workplace culture, profit, and sustainability. I'm your host, Derek Brown. Let's jump right in. Beth, let me throw out a scenario you have seen many times over your career. Someone has just been promoted to supervisor for the first time. They make one big mistake right out of the gate. They later wish someone would have warned them about the big tripping hazard. And when you think about this, what comes to mind from your experience with so many first-time supervisors over the years?
Derek, I really like that you're calling them tripping hazards because we're all at risk at tripping when we're under the assumption that the road's familiar and we can just step like we have always stepped before. This assumption is really the first hazard a new supervisor faces. Employees are generally promoted to supervisor because they perform well in their current role, they're strong technically, and they've shown the capacity to handle more responsibility. So then when they start their supervisory role, they simply do the same things that have made them successful to date. They do what's familiar rather than recognizing that they're on a new road that requires them to approach new bumps and wrinkles differently. For example, consider a new supervisor in production. Let's say he sees a problem on the floor, he grabs a tool, and he just fixes it himself instead of asking one of his new technicians to do it. He does this because he's a strong technician himself, he knows the tools, and he's comfortable working with them. So he just thinks to himself, I'll just do it real quick. And then he does. He's just sent a message to his new team that he doesn't trust them to do it because he's done it himself. This new supervisor was simply doing what he's always done before that's been helpful. He just doesn't realize his job is now instead to give his new team the opportunity to demonstrate their ability to do the work.
That's a great example and demonstrates the difficulty of crossing over from technical expert to supervisor. As you and I know, to be successful, the supervisor's roles, plural, require many things in any given day, including being a project manager, being a teacher, being a coach, and among many other things, being patient. All those new job requirements are harder than they sound, especially in a high-paced, stressful environment. Those first weeks and months on the job are especially hard, especially if you've been promoted to be the supervisor of people who were at the same point on the org chart as you were just yesterday. Would you mind speaking about this?
Sure, Derek. We all want to be liked, especially if we've got friends on a team that we're now finding ourselves overseeing. And while we all want to be liked, we all should want to be respected more. Not dealing with an issue when I see one because I want to be liked leads the rest of the team to question whether I'm going to allow them to have to work with someone else's bad behavior. And this immediately hurts the very trust and connection I'm trying so hard to build and sustain. For example, let's consider a new supervisor who wants to be liked so much and still accepted as part of the team that she doesn't speak up when she sees one of her team missing earplugs in a safety zone or coming in late, maybe for the second time in a week. As a supervisor, I have to deal with poor performance when I see it, because it's my job to protect my best performers from the consequences of someone else's poor decision. The person I have to correct may not like me in the moment, but dealing with the situation quickly will really earn me the respect and appreciation of the rest of the team. If you've been promoted as a new supervisor of your current team, you have a very unique challenge. And the challenge here is really to have to reconnect with them, to reset some boundaries and expectations of the relationships. The bottom line is things cannot be exactly the same as they have always been. And that's just a really hard lesson for new supervisors to learn. But the sooner you learn it, and the sooner you accept it, and the sooner you reset those boundaries with your teammates, the faster you will all transition to this new world. The preference is always going to be to lead through influence. And if you've been a good team member, you've built that influence. But at some point, you're going to have to correct someone or say no. And having an honest conversation early with your teammates about how your role has changed and how you want to approach the team, it can really help set the stage for that later. The one-on-one meetings I suggested earlier are a great time to have these conversations.
And could you give a little bit more practical advice on what to discuss in this scenario, sort of how to frame it and what to say?
Sure. I would tell each team member really that I appreciate their support and I appreciate all that they have taught me that has helped me get promoted. That really my promotion is a reflection of the success of the whole team. I would also ask them what they feel they need right now, and I would follow up on what they tell me. Let's find some easy wins early on. Finally, I would commit to each member of the team that I will do my very best to be helpful, to be fair, and to ensure that each team member lives up to their obligations in terms of safety and behavior and results. And I would be very honest in saying, sometimes I may have to say no, or sometimes we may have to have a tough conversation. But my intention will always be to work things out for the best interest of everyone on the team. I would also talk specifically with people on the team who happen to be close friends. Sometimes people are fishing buddies. They go to lunch all the time. You may have become very close in your families. And it's best to have the conversation early with those close friends about how things need to change regarding how you're going to spend time together. For example, if someone on your team and you fish every Saturday, then maybe you need to think about how others on the team are going to view that differently than they did before. Are they going to think to themselves, will he be treated better because they're going fishing? Will they think to themselves, hey, what are they talking about when they're going fishing? Are they talking about me? You have to begin to look at what you do through the eyes of the team. These are tough questions if you have a friendship with a team member, but you've got to answer them and you have to deal with them if you're going to be seen and respected as a fair supervisor who looks out for everybody. And maybe you and your buddies still fish from time to time, but perhaps you just rotate others in from the team to provide some transparency. In your one-on-one with your fishing buddy, share your concerns for you both, really, and agree together on what the new boundaries will be.
Well said, and great points and insights, Beth. A new supervisor has to earn trust starting from day one, with emphasis on the earning part. And that is also hard. Would you mind talking a little bit about the tripping hazards related to trust earning?
Sure. Sometimes new leaders assume that a new title earns them immediate credibility, or some of them even assume that their past technical competence earns them immediate credibility with their team. But this just isn't the case. Your new direct reports won't care what you know unless they believe you care about them. Getting to know your team and learning what you can learn from them should really be your starting point as a new supervisor. Derek, it's been my experience that the more connected people are, the better they behave. Knowing your people well will help you both work harder to meet the shared goals of the team. But it will also help you notice faster when someone seems confused about what's expected or maybe they start moving off track. If you know a person's regular pattern of behavior, you can spot faster when something just seems off about them, and you can address it before things go awry. I would say this is particularly important when it comes to safety sensitive jobs and knowing when someone needs an extra set of eyes to keep them safe because they seem somehow distracted or upset.
When you think about ways that you would recommend that a new supervisor does try to connect with their direct reports, what would you say to that brand new supervisor?
I would just start by telling the new team that you want to schedule some one on one meetings with them in order to get to know them better. Really, the best way to get to know the team is just to spend time with them. So I would keep it casual. I would just invite them to lunch or maybe breakfast, or even if it's just a cup of coffee over break. Ask them about their families and what's important to them outside of work. Find out what their hobbies are. You're not looking to grill them, but just to get to know them better. The goal is not to know just what they can do as a worker, but to understand what they're working for and really what they want to accomplish. We all work for more than a paycheck. We work for what that paycheck provides us so we can live the life we want with the people we love and care about. At its highest level, leadership is really about enabling those we work with to achieve what they want to achieve in life and to help them build the life that's meaningful for them. But to do that, we have to know them as people. Now, this does require you to be vulnerable as well, because you have to go into these discussions prepared to share some things about yourself. People trust what they know, so your team needs to get to know you. For example, if there are work socials or after-hour events, take advantage of the time to meet your employees' families. Learn about their favorite sports teams or hobbies and ask them questions about it occasionally. Getting to know them is going to take time. It's not all going to happen in that first one-on-one meeting. And while this is an investment of time and energy on the front end, the trust and communication that it builds along the way will help you solve problems faster and easier and at a much lower cost than you'll be able to do otherwise.
Beth, you've been in HR or HR adjacent arenas your whole career with electric generation companies, accounting firms, land development companies, with us, KCNA as a management consulting firm, and you've had other opportunities in your background as well. It might be easy to think that first-time supervisors in a power plant maintenance department, for example, might have wildly different tripping hazards than those of a new supervisor at a public accounting firm. But is that true?
No, absolutely not. Some industries are more safety sensitive than others, but every person, regardless of the company they work for or the role that they're in, wants to feel safe, both physically and emotionally. Really, regardless of where I work, my new role as a supervisor is basically threefold. First, I have to manage me well, and I have to provide a good example. Second, I have to create an environment that promotes and protects my team's physical and emotional safety. And finally, I must make sure my people have the tools, the training, and the work environment they need to do their best work, whatever that work is. To do all that, I have to make it easy for my folks to bring me problems and questions and issues quickly. The more my team sees me as a fair advocate who listens and tries to keep obstacles out of their way, the faster they're going to tell me what I need to know. And then I can help keep small issues from becoming big ones. This is a huge key to a leader's success, regardless of the role or the industry.
Makes a lot of sense. And as you just alluded to, problems rarely just go away. We all know this. They only grow and get worse. Avoiding problems and tough
Yes.
conversations in the hopes that the problem will resolve itself is one mistake many of us learn the hard way, including me. What are your thoughts on how this applies to a new supervisor starting on that day one?
Oh, Derek, haven't we all learned that one the hard way? We all know that most people naturally run from conflict. I mean, I've seen executive level managers who will do anything to avoid an uncomfortable discussion. And I've seen firsthand many instances where what could have been a very small problem became a huge one simply because of that avoidance. So I would tell every new supervisor, beginning with day one, learn how to have a respectful difference of opinion and don't be afraid to ask questions that might lead to an uncomfortable conversation. This one skill can really set you apart as a leader, and you can learn it if you choose to. Here's how. If you become aware of a potential issue or problem, just lean into the discomfort and run toward it as soon as you see it coming. Closing the distance is the difference between an easy, fast resolution or a long, protracted one. Really, every tough conversation is an opportunity to practice that. It's an opportunity to not only let ideas compete, but also to enhance trust with other people. Every time people have a difference of opinion with me, and the conversation is respectful and we come to a constructive end, it teaches them they can come to me quickly with bad news. And trust me, as a new supervisor, I need my team to bring me bad news as soon as they know about it. The sooner I know about an issue, the faster and more easily I can help them resolve it. This is a place where those one-on-ones and really building those connections really pays off.
Let me do a listener introduction of you, Beth. Beth spent 17 years in human resources with Southern Company, which is a publicly traded public utility that has operated power plants and distributes electricity to residential, commercial, governmental, and industrial clients in the states of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida. Then Beth spent 8 years working with Dr. Chapman here at Ken Chapman and Associates Incorporated, where we work together today, helping me enter this field back in 2011 as I was selling my small company. Beth later left for work back in her home of Savannah, but returned to KCNA in 2025. In the interim, she served as Director of Human Resources at a mid-sized Georgia and Florida regional accounting firm and as Director of HR and Organizational Effectiveness for a large Savannah community association. Prior to that, Beth graduated from what is today known as Georgia Southern University and holds her SHRM Senior Certified Professional certification as a human resources professional. Beth currently resides in Savannah, Georgia with her husband. Well, let's discuss the elephant in the room, as they say. Usually, HR can have a reputation as where you go when something goes sideways or a problem is completely on fire. There are plenty of people who entirely try to avoid HR, including new supervisors, but an effective HR department can actually be very helpful to new supervisors in avoiding the tripping hazards we've been discussing. So, how can a new supervisor benefit from proactively working with HR rather than reactively working with HR? Would you give us some guidance and insights on this?
Oh, I would love to, Derek. Working in HR all these years, this is definitely a tripping hazard that I have seen occur quite often. For whatever reason, people avoid HR and then they come into a role where they really need to interact with them and they don't. So I would say to every new supervisor, partner early with your human resources rep. If you don't know who your human resources rep is, then fine. You proactively schedule an introductory meeting with them and get familiar. Learn how to reach them when needed. Learn where they are. Ask them for resources. These are the people whose job it is to help you do your job well. So let them help set you up for success. If I was a new supervisor, I would go to HR and I would ask them, how do I find the most recent policies? Most employees sign them, but they aren't familiar with them every day. Ask HR to show you how to get to the most recent policies and then get to know them. Part of your new role is making sure that the folks who report to you are following those policies and those procedures and company standards of behavior. So you need to know them now in a way that maybe you didn't before. Let HR know where you think you need help as early as you can. They know you're in a new supervisory role, but you know where you feel like you're going to struggle. If you share with them your concerns, they can often provide resources or training or coaching, or they can give you ideas for dealing with some of the things that you're concerned about before they come to a head. You just have to be willing to be transparent and vulnerable. It is HR's job to help you. And certainly, I would say before your first, always consult with them. And what do I mean by your first? Your first hire, your first performance discussion, your first disciplinary discussion, even your first recognition opportunity. Seek coaching from HR and ask them to help you prepare for that situation. Ask them about documentation needs. Let HR help you avoid these tripping hazards. They don't need to be a cleanup crew when something goes sideways. And in addition to HR, I would say if you're in a safety sensitive industry, you should also strongly partner with your safety specialist. Get to know your safety specialist. Understand how to get in touch with them when you need them. If you're on a new team, ask the specialist what some of the patterns of behavior have been so you can see what some of the attitudes towards safety have been in the past. What safety issues have there been in the recent past? For instance, are there particular safety procedures? Or is there a personal protective equipment that has been a particular issue for your team that you now need to pay attention to? Know when and how to get safety involved and what resources are available to help you help your team keep each other safe. I always recommend to new supervisors that they specifically let HR and safety help them pave the way to avoiding some of these early tripping hazards.
Every real estate person I have ever known claims that there are 3 magic words in real estate: location, location, location. And every human resources person I have ever known, as their own 3 magic words, say document, document, document. Would you say more about this HR equivalent of abracadabra?
Yes, and I wish we could just wave a magic wand and make everything fall into place when we need it. But at the end of the day, documenting today helps save us all a world of hurt tomorrow. And every new supervisor is in a position to learn the value of documentation right now. As you move through your career past your supervisory role, every job in management will be easier along the way if you have learned the art of documentation. In all my years in HR, I've seen the value of good documentation and what can happen when there is a lack thereof. It's really the difference between a potential lawsuit actually happening or just getting nipped in the bud immediately. Your role as a supervisor is no longer just about getting the work done, and it's not just about getting it done safely or even making sure that people are doing what they should be doing. Now that you're a first line supervisor, you're a formal leader, and that means that you have become what we call an agent of the company. And this gives you a formal obligation to mitigate risk. This means ensuring safe work practices, treating people equitably, dealing with bad behavior as soon as you are aware of it, and documenting all of that along the way and how you deal with it. So, really, every new supervisor needs to get into the habit right now. And every manager who's listening, if you're not into the habit, go ahead and get into it. Jot down a quick note every time you have a coaching conversation with someone, including the date, the time, and the gist of the conversation. It doesn't have to be an essay, just a few bullet points about what you covered. You'll want to document everything from incidents of poor performance to excellent performance to back up performance reviews and coaching conversations. As an agent of the company, you also have to follow formal discipline procedures when needed, and all the company policies as they're written, which, as I've already mentioned, it's important to get from HR early on. And I would say when you have a conversation with someone, especially one that you feel like you need to document, it's always good to have another witness in the room, particularly if the conversation is going to be a difficult one or potentially contentious. That person could be a manager, it could be your HR rep, anybody who could provide a witness to the conversation. Just make sure that you prepare the individual beforehand so they understand the situation and what you're trying to get out of the meeting so they can help steer the conversation if something starts to go off track. And also, if you have a witness, make sure you note it in the documentation.
Excellent advice, Beth. I only have 2 more questions for you, if you don't mind. The first one is, would you say more about your advice on proactively asking for feedback from your manager if you are a new supervisor, instead of waiting for your manager to hear from you when something goes wrong?
Sure. I would imagine that if you have just been promoted to supervisor, you may have already gotten pretty good at asking for feedback along the way. But this is certainly no time to stop. Be proactive about your progress as a new leader. If you have a mentor, you can certainly go to them and ask for help, or you can go to your manager for resources depending upon your organization. But as a minimum, I would request periodic updates with my manager to just ensure I'm starting off well. Maybe even a quick weekly meeting, and then move to every other week, and then monthly as I'm getting more comfortable in the job. You really need to get clear on your manager's expectations of you and the team, and how you and your team are going to be measured against those expectations. Don't be afraid to ask questions and seek guidance. Your manager's going to appreciate that you were proactive about that. And I would say ask for feedback at every opportunity, not just from your manager, but from some of the more seasoned supervisors that you work with. And I would have my manager be in a position to provide feedback on the things I'm doing. For example, if I work in production and I have a regular morning meeting, I might ask my manager to attend my first few morning meetings and then ask for their take on how they thought the meeting went and what I might do differently next time. And certainly when I have my first disciplinary conversation, I need to ask someone with experience to sit in, whether it's my manager or someone in HR, or even if it's another seasoned supervisor. This is not only going to give you a witness, as I mentioned earlier, but it's also going to provide you a good source of feedback on how you handled the meeting. And finally, I would say never miss the opportunity to learn from your direct reports. I would form an early habit of asking them for feedback as well. This really demonstrates both humility and the importance of seeking feedback from others. Asking your direct reports for feedback makes it easier for them to tell you what you need to know, which is certainly required for your success as a new supervisor.
Great insights, Beth. Thank you again. Last question. What should I have asked you that I did not ask you?
Derek, I would just make a couple of observations if I could. I would just say that if you're listening as a new supervisor, congratulations. You have earned this role because you have been a competent, successful team member. Your future success and your future progression in leadership, it really rests now on your ability to develop other successful team members and help them work together towards team success. Accept your first role as a formal leader with humility, because really you are starting over. In fact, every level of leadership requires new skills and competencies. We may have been the best at what we did before, but now we're in a new place and we have to learn the new skills to help us be successful in this place. The first line supervisor role is the one in which you'll develop all the additional leadership skills that are going to form the basis for every other role in management that you take from here. Learn how to learn from your direct reports, which is critical. You're going to learn how to help your direct reports be comfortable sharing their ideas and concerns with you. You're going to learn how to coach people to resolve differences. And you're going to learn how to advocate for your people's needs. And most importantly, be a courageous voice for their concerns up through the chain of command. It's not your job as a supervisor to know every job better than your direct reports, or every process better, or even to know how to run the tools better. While it helps to have some technical understanding, it's just not about the tools anymore. It's about how to set your team up for success in their roles.
Thank you so much, Beth. There's been a gold mine of good information in this podcast episode, and thank you for sharing your valuable time. I'm going to post links to your bio and to your LinkedIn account in case somebody listens to this and would like to connect with you or know more. Thank you again for joining the podcast and sharing your brain power with us, Beth.
Derek, thanks for letting me come and spend some time with you. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
You're welcome. Brain Chatter is a production of Ken Chapman and Associates Incorporated. We assist clients across North America and beyond with leadership development, corporate culture transformation initiatives, behavior-based professional development for health and safety issues, individual and team assessments, conflict and performance management, succession planning, team building, and more, making a difference in organizations and individuals' lives for over 40 years. Learn more at leaderscode.com. And please consider ranking and reviewing us wherever you listen to podcasts. The more reviews or rankings we receive, the more the algorithms recommend us to new listeners. Thank you for your valuable time listening.